Hello and welcome back. And in this video, I will be sharing a part of my fourth coaching session I had with Chilli. You can find his info in the description. And in this session, he showed me some games played by Capablanca. Now, of course, he doesn't really need an introduction. We all know where he was famous for. And at some point, multiple points in the session, but also in the part I have for the video, he asked me to he asked me how to continue from a certain point. And after I came up with a move, he asked me for other candidate moves, and then try to make a rational decision. Well, that's not easy. That's very hard, actually. And when something is not easy, you found something you can work on. So that's one takeaway for me from this session. So not going with my first intuition, but try to come up with a few candidate moves and evaluate each of them. That's going to be tough, but let's try that out next week. Well, have fun with the video. If you like the video, please leave a comment or a like. That's really been appreciated. And let's go.
Sometimes they will play very well, and there's just nothing you can do about that. And so you need to think about the end game and take that into consideration as well. So
Interesting.
let's see how this goes. So,
Yeah.
so d4, d5, c4, and e6. And the position we're going to get here is a Tarrasch defense. So we get this sort of position here. And you'll see that we get the structure here. Rook d1, queen a5. So what's going on here? We see that black has already castled, queen a5. We're starting to now bring our queen out, and we're going to need to find a home for this bishop because it is the bad bishop, it's locked in. And we see that white's going to have to waste the tempo here. So bishop d3, and then get castled, and then the game will start for white, the middle game. h6, because we don't like this bishop being here.
Mm-hmm.
And you can choose to take this. This is a possible line, but it's just simply better to play bishop h4, as played in the game. And in these structures, I say that white wastes the tempo here because black will always be able to play c takes d4, and then d takes c4.
Yeah.
And now what happens is you're gonna have to move this bishop again and take this pawn back. So you've essentially moved the bishop 2 times. So it took more tempi than it would need to develop the bishop since it had to move again. And notice what happens to the pawn structure. White has more center control, but they also have an isolated pawn. So this pawn is isolated. It's well defended for now because there's this, there's the possibility of pushing in the future. And so it is a weakness in a way. It's a static weakness because this pawn will always be weak here since it's not defended by other pawns.
Mm-hmm.
However, the game plan now is to capitalize on this and try and actually capture this pawn here for black. So we need to come up with a game plan. How should we continue from this position?
Well,
Because there's two things we need to do. We need to kind of blockade this pawn first and foremost, because if this pawn can push forwards and trade off, then it's not a weakness. So we have to kind of stop this plan immediately. So let's start from here. How would we stop this pawn from pushing forwards?
Well, it would make sense to. Can I push right now? Because my instinct says to fianchetto the bishop to b7 to have some more control over that square.
So you're thinking b6.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. But on the other hand, yeah, what's up with that move?
How about How about b6 and then d5 immediately?
Is that possible? Yeah, I think it is, eh? But if you put a knight right there, right now, they can just take the knight, and I have to take back. And then I'm also having an isolated pawn right over there. That's not the point, I think. That's not what you want to achieve.
Well, calculate for me first this line with b6 and then d5. Let's see what happens here. Let's see if white is actually prepared to push.
So here, I can take. Well, the knight cannot take back because it's pinned.
Yes.
But let me see. They can always throw in this move, but no, that's not really a big deal. I have it covered, so I think you can get away with this.
Yep.
And then
You definitely can, because
and
they
then
need
maybe
to castle first.
and then maybe bring a rook over, and then he's never going to push that pawn.
Well, we've made our first initial calculation, which was b6, and then they have to castle, of course, to unpin the knight so they can push. But bishop b7. So we're looking at b6, castles, bishop b7, and how about now? Now can they push? This also has to be considered.
There, castles there. Well, they have an extra piece now looking at that square.
Yep.
But if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, and I have 1, 2. I have also 4 pieces looking at that square, so I guess they can't. Right?
Well, let's try and calculate just through brute force calculation.
Okay, so here castles, here push.
Yep.
I can take. I don't know. Takes. No, that's not going to work out for them.
Okay, good.
Or is my calculation very bad?
No, it's not bad.
Okay.
It's good. You're
Okay.
calculating correctly. So now, that's just one option. There are many other options to consider in this position. So, you looked at this line with b6 and knight b7. What are some other candidate moves? And this is really a key word for you. Candidate moves is super important because it's not enough to just have good calculation and calculate our first initial intuition out, because yes, it may look good, the line that we calculate through our intuition, but there may be other options that are hidden that we haven't considered as much. So we need to look at everything. So we need to have many candidate moves and choose between what the best move is.
Well, there's also
So
knight b6 followed up with maybe knight d5. It's maybe also an
and
idea.
how would that play out? So let's calculate knight b6 now.
So here they still can't push. So let's say they castle and I play here. Well, they can trade off quite a lot. And I have to be a little bit careful. Wait, I already lost my calculation here. It's actually quite tough. So here, castles. Here.
Oh, the bishop is hanging here on c4.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the great thing about knight b6.
Oh, yeah, I missed that. You get a tempo here. Yeah. So bishop probably has to go back, or maybe here. Or be defended. That's also an option.
Yeah.
Although this looks a little bit sketchy. Because of...
Yeah, it does. So...
Yeah, so here,
It looks... Yep.
And Well, can I don't know. I was looking at this move also, maybe to try to trade a bishop off. That would be nice, but he doesn't have to. He can also go here.
Yeah.
And then this knight feels a little bit awkward here. So, but this is a nice idea, right? Here.
Yeah, very nice.
And then
That's
you
a
are
very nice
blockading.
idea because we blockade the pawn and then the pawn cannot push forwards if we have enough pieces to defend the knight. Because the knight's not a defender now, it's kind of a piece that needs defending. So we'd have 1, 2, 3 defenders on the knight. So that has to be more than attackers on this knight, which would be 1, 2, 1, 2. So yes, we could play this and this. However, there may be this to consider as well, because there's tactical motifs to this. So let's say this, knight, and then bishop takes, takes, takes. So this would work in our favor. And what I like about this line of knight b6 is, well, first of all, you're gaining tempo, which is always nice, and then this bishop has to move a third time. So that should already be a good sign. And also we can really easily reinforce this defense even stronger by playing rook e8. And then that's an immediate way of adding another defender to the pawn on the square. So that is a very nice idea. And you missed this idea of the bishop losing a tempo here from the beginning. And your immediate intuition
I was more concerned. Yes, I was more concerned about my bishop in the long term. So I thought, well, this is my chance to give it a task, you know?
Perfect. Yeah, so that's a good way of thinking. And you'll see that you have to think in many different ways in chess. And sometimes just how good the line looks will overpower what you feel is the right plan to play for. So the move played is knight b6. And we have very good control over the d5 push now. Bishop b3. And then since we're so well prepared for this, bishop d7. So we actually have time to play this and find a good place for our bishop, because we can play bishop to c6 when we want to, and base that off to castle. And then this cool move, rook ac8. So we're not rushing with bishop to c6. We're not rushing, and we can play another developing move, which is rook ac8. And again, the idea is to take away a defender from the d5 push. Now you can't do this because the queen is pinned. Yeah. And you'll see that this queen and bishop configuration, it really gets quite awkward here. So knight e5, and knight e5, bishop to d7, sorry, bishop d5 from d7. And we didn't want to allow this. This really isn't ideal for us. So we play this move with, again, tactical ideas of hitting the rook, and you cannot take this bishop because the queen is pinned. So it really does become a problem, and you have to play in this position rook fe1. Okay, how do we take it from here?
Well, my other rook is undeveloped. I can leave everything as it is, I think, and rook d8 looks nice.
Yeah, that's a very good move.
Yeah, I think I would play that.
Well, let's think like this. Let's have, because you're saying this move looks good, so I'll play it. But we're not really trying to consider the absolute best move. So let's hear many different candidate moves and then decide from which one you feel is best. So that's one possibility. Rook e8 will definitely have that on the list. What's another move we could play?
Well, I can retreat the bishop, just anticipating on the queen moving somewhere, and maybe I don't want to allow this.
Sure, okay, yeah, that's candidate.
I can hop my knight into the center, apply pressure on the knight, maybe
perfect.
Maybe get a trade in.
And if we have this, we'll definitely have to have the other knight as an option as well. So we've got 4 candidate moves here.
Yeah.
Now we have to choose which one is better.
Well,
And this has to be calculated. So
yeah.
let's start off with your initial move, rook e8, and we'll calculate from here.
So, yeah, I'm not doing a lot. I'm just developing a piece to the center. But yeah, what's white gonna play? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he wants to double up. Try to force this move at some moment. That's difficult to say what white wants. Maybe they want to make some luft. I don't know. Reroute the bishop.
But
Yeah.
does rook e8 add any pressure in any way to the position?
Well, controls that square a little bit more. So that's always nice, right?
Yeah. So you defend and you add pressure here. So you're defending d5 another time, and you are bringing a piece to hit this pawn, and you will have 2 rooks on the only open files in the position. So that is definitely good to have. But notice the theme has been kind of to be, first of all, we're going to blockade the advance so that this pawn is permanently weak, and then, well, the pawn is permanently weak, but he can never get rid of it if the d5 square is blockaded. So we could also consider another move like knight bd5, because this also adds pressure because we're threatening to play knight takes and win a pawn. And this is an immediate threat because if you play take, we can play queen takes, and that's even a queen trade. And if we trade queens when he has an isolated pawn, this will just be terribly weak for him. So this is an immediate threat.
Yeah, I didn't saw
And so there is.
I didn't saw the threat of winning the pawn there. Actually, to be honest. Yeah.
And that's why our intuition is only as good as our level of chess, and we always need to be evolving our chess play so that we can also evolve our intuition into becoming much, much stronger. So that's also the importance of candidate moves, because your candidate moves will help you separate between different types of thinking, because your first option will always be your intuition and what you feel is correct, but that might not always be the best move, and we need to learn to select between different modes of thinking. So knight b5 is played, and we're also stopping any rooks from defending, because now you can't play, let's say, rook d3 or rook e3, because we're controlling these squares. So this is a very nice move positionally. And so much so that Lasker here plays bishop takes d5. And now we're trading off bishop for knight, which is just very good for us. And it leads to a big trade here where they have to take and we take. And the more pieces you trade off in isolated pawn positions for the side of the isolated pawn, it's bad. So this is good for us because we are taking away possible defenders from this pawn.
Yeah.
And we still have many attacking possibilities. Now rook e8 looks really strong, for example. And so queen b3. And this is really what I want to highlight this game. So here there is a really, really nice idea that Capablanca plays, and this is touching on that theme of thinking about the endgame. Now, look at this move. This move, bishop c6. And it looks so strange to give up your bishop since you're the only player with a bishop on the board. But this is just beautifully played, because now knight takes, and the idea of bishop to c6, first of all, it was control this square, and now it's to play b takes.
Ah, I see.
Because notice,
yeah, huh?
If you play knight takes, then
Yeah,
there may be stuff like this.
Yeah.
And if you play rook takes, then also there's this, and you'd have to play something like this, and we play from here. So this isn't really good. You had to play bishop c6 thinking of this. And notice how controlled the pawn is now. Not only the pawn, but the knight can't jump to any of the advancing squares. So this is a very strong move. And we'll see just how strong this is in the game. So rook e5, queen b6, offering a queen trade. And it's funny that you'd offer a queen trade here, because it's actually going to help you so much. It fixes your structure, because you yourself have created a kind of weakness here in the position, and you offer a queen trade in a way where if they accept, you're taking away your weakness. So this is why a queen trade is offered, because there wouldn't be a weakness in the position to take advantage of that white would have. So queen b6, he obviously declines because this endgame now would be worse. So Capablanca wouldn't be thinking about trading queens in, like, let's say, a future position. Like, if they could get the queen here, they wouldn't go for this queen trade, probably. Rook fd8, finally. And we're taking it very slowly. So the first step is always to control the square in front of the pawn so that it can't push forwards and make itself tradable. So we first defend the square in front of the pawn, knight e2, and now we can start attacking, you'll see. So knight d5, and then they take, and here we have three options. So first option, of course, is to play takes, second is to play takes, and then third to play takes. And from here, I'll ask you to calculate the best line.
I thought that this lost a rook, but it's defended. So,
yep.
Well, this looks nice because it fixes my structure and comes with tempo.
Yep.
That's nice. And yeah, and then we can target our pieces to target that pawn. On the other hand, taking with the knight is also pretty nice. I mean, it's a pretty nice outpost for the knight.
Okay.
But I don't know. Now I'm really leaning towards this one, towards taking with the pawn, actually. And
but what would make you? Is there like a defining reason you would play c takes instead of knight takes d5? Like, what rules this out as not as great as c takes?
Yeah, I think by taking, I mean, this pawn is a little bit weak. Not right now, but it is, right?
Yeah.
So I get rid of my weakness with tempo, so I keep the initiative a little bit. And
there is a defining factor here to this position, which is when you play c takes d5, notice that every single move we have played in this position, in this game, has been to control d5 and to not allow white to push d5. And when you play c takes, now you obviously cannot push. You can never push this pawn. So you not only fix your structure, you do finally make this pawn permanently weak, and you can target it for the rest of the game. And this is exactly what happens. And you also do this with tempo, which is so this would be the defining factor. We can take, fix our structure, and also fix their pawn on d4. So queen d2. And everything has shifted now to the attack of the pawn. So you'll see knight f5 immediately adding pressure to d4. b3. We're not going to look too deeply at white's moves here. We'll be interested more in what black plays. So look at this move now. h5. And the idea of h5 is you're stopping g4. So now you can't kick this knight out at any point. This knight has been permanently given a square on f5. Okay, h3. And it's funny because the pawn on the h-pawn does the same function on f5 as it does on h4. Because now if they push, we take en passant.
Yeah.
So you could push this even further, and by playing h4, you also take away the square for the knight, which is very cool. So this is a very nice move here. h4, very beautiful. Queen d3. Rook c6, trying to get the pieces up. G6. And everything is just taking it slowly because this will never change. This will never change, and so we can take as much time as we want. As long as we don't allow too much play for white, we can play slowly and just take the position as it is. So queen b4, adding pressure, king back, a5. And I did say that it's not good to push your minority, but here we can push our minority because it's for tactical purposes. We can play a4, and they cannot take this. So this is kind of like the reason why this is played. Queen here, take, 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 take. And now you've made a second isolated pawn.
Yeah.
So now there are two isolated pawns in the position and two weaknesses, and we can target both of these, and we'll see how both of them are important to actually breaking through and making an attack work. So rook b6, and the idea is probably to play rook b4, hitting both pawns at once. So rook a6, because the rook does defend both. G4, we have to take, of course. And he takes with the pawn. If he took with the knight, would you take with the knight, or what would you do in this position?
Yeah, I would like to think I would take with the knight actually, and bring my king over. But on the other hand, he can push those two pawns and create an pass pawn over here. Eh? Can also just leave it. I mean, if they take no, but then they get a pass pawn right away. It's not the end of the world, but can be a headache if I allow this.
There's a third option. So I don't think we should allow him to take.
Or just
that's correct.
Keep the knight.
Yep. We could do that. We could also throw in a check first and play like rook a1 check. And then let's say they play king g2. Then we can consider what to do next. And this pawn looks very weak. So maybe a cool idea is to play for something like knight back. And at some point try and get this combined with the rook and taking this pawn. So this is a very nice idea as well. So I would not trade the knights off. I would play probably this or something. And the idea is this knight is a perfect blockading piece. There are so many weak pawns now. Literally every single pawn of white's is a isolated pawn.
Yeah.
So it's this endgame aspect that I'm thinking of, which would lead me to not take with the knight. Because if I take with the knight, I get the chance to kind of fix his structure. And then he does have chances to make a pass pawn, which would look like these two pawns pushing forwards. So like this, take, and then this is a pass pawn. It's unnecessary to give him any sort of winning chances. It's much better to leave everything cracked and broken up. So takes, he takes the pawn for this reason, because it's not a guarantee that that he's gonna take this, right? In this position. So since this isn't forced, this knight takes isn't forced, he plays just takes with the pawn.
Yeah, I see. Otherwise, he's giving himself that weakness.
Exactly. And look at how beautifully conducted this position is now. Rook a2, hitting the knight. Knight has to move. And it's basically a game of making their defense as awkward as possible until we can actually capitalize on something. So rook c2, kind of restricting this rook in a way, because now there's threats of playing knight takes d5, and if you take, you lose the knight. So we win a pawn here as black.
Yeah.
And we're also on the 6th rank, hitting everything here. The knight d1 has to be played. Knight e7, trying to find a way to attack the pawns, and this is a very nice idea. This is a nice blockading idea as well. So the it's knight e3, check, king f2, knight c6. This was a bit of a mistake, just because there was a much stronger and beautiful move here to be played, which was knight b4, hitting the rook. And if you play rook d2, which seems to be the only logical move in this position, Then you get hit with rook b1. And rook b1 is very nice. Because you have to play knight b2.
Ah, but you can take. You can take the knight.
Yeah, you can take the knight, take, check, and take and win.
Yeah.
And so this is just crushing. But rook b1 is played immediately, which is also fine. And now takes with the same idea, because now if you take the rook, there's tactics. So you can't do that, of course. Rook b4, targeting the weak pawn. And then there's some rerouting. We reach this position, and it feels like all of our pieces have improved, and there's no way to further attack this pawn. So we're going to do something else now. We're going to play g5. g4, kicking the knight out. Again, another weakness has been created here, and black has not compromised too much, whereas white has, because now this is very weak. It's a backward pawn.
Yeah.
So knight d6. And we can play very slowly this way and force them into making these compromising moves. And then when they do make these moves, all we have to do is take advantage of it. And this is very important for this level. And we'll see how this turns out for white. So you see how slowly we take the position,
Yeah.
and
Beautiful.
so we finally push forwards and we make a pass pawn. Now we just need to invest in it. There's no other reason to have anything else going for us. There's no reason to try and take this pawn anymore, because our winning chances are here. And if they do find a way to defend this, then we can focus on the pawns. And while they're busy dealing with this pawn, we'll be taking these pawns here.
Yeah.
So it's really a game of understanding how the pawns affect the endgames and the position as a whole. Okay, next game.
Wow. It was beautiful. Well, that was it for today. I hope you liked it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. That would really be appreciated. And I hope I will see you back next time. Goodbye.